What's going on? This is Brett Snodgrass with another episode of the Indy Investor Pod. And today I'm interviewing Dan Bostick from Monument Title. And today we're talking about how do we find an investor-friendly title company, talking about tax certificates, quiet titles, and how Dan is coping with this stay-at-home order and this pandemic going on and how investors should prepare for that. So let's get on with the show.
Thanks for having me, Brett. Appreciate it.
And welcome back to this episode. Again, like I said, we're talking with Dan Bostick. Welcome to the show, Dan.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. I'm excited to have you. I know we've had a pretty good relationship over the past several years.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's been pretty awesome just getting to know you, seeing how much you've grown your business. Honestly,
Same.
it's been awesome.
Yeah.
Why don't you
Same.
kind of give our listening audience just a little about how long have you been in the title business and you know, I know you own Monument Title, or you're working with that now, but tell us about that real quick.
Yeah, sure. I've been in the industry for 23 years, worked for a couple title companies, and I've really done everything from pulling staples out of files to title searching, closing, commercial closings, just kind of been through it all.
Awesome. Do you miss pulling staples?
I don't. That was probably one of the more boring jobs I've had, but it was a foot in the door. So, okay.
Sounds good. Well, over the past 23 years, you've really grown, and it's just been awesome to see you literally over the past couple of years. And I know that you're one of the experts, I guess, when I think of Indianapolis, Indiana, and I think of investor-friendly title companies, your name definitely comes to mind. And I know a lot of local real estate investors use your services and out-of-state investors as well. So I want to talk just a little bit about investor-friendly title companies. And I want to get your opinion on, because there's so many title companies out there, right? You can open up Google, Yellow Pages, whatever, and find a title company, but there's only a select few that are kind of investor friendly. So what are the things that an investor should look for when they're working with an investor friendly title company?
Certainly. Well, I think the main thing to look for is the assignment and double closings. That seems to be the main avenue that wholesalers, investors are unloading their properties. So you want to make sure that title company is comfortable with that process before, I think, even obviously starting an order with them. Because last thing you want to do is start an order and then have it blow up the last minute because the title company doesn't understand how the transaction is working.
So would that be the kind of like first question when you call up a title company to say, hey, do you guys do double closings? And some title companies probably don't even know, like, what are you talking about? What is that?
No, you're exactly right. It's a kind of a foreign concept for some title companies because it's somewhat untraditional. But yeah, I mean that is the absolute first question, is there's no sense in opening up or starting a relationship with a title company that doesn't understand your business.
Yeah, definitely. So that's the first thing, a title company that knows assignments and double closings. Anything else that you should ask the title company up front, just by working with them as an investor?
Yeah, absolutely. I think turn time is a pretty key thing for an investor, and sometimes they need to move rapidly. So how quickly can you get a title search together? How quickly can you get a property to closing? If you hear anything over 5 days, you might want to make the next phone call to another title company.
Gotcha. So that's a typical turn time to get the title search, the title commitment. What typically is that?
Yeah, I think that's a standard time, I guess. Certain companies, I guess, have the ability to do it quicker. And that's based upon if they have their own title department or if they outsource their searching. So, there's been times where I've seen a closing happen in a day or a couple hours, actually. So it depends on the resources that a certain title company has in order to provide, sometimes speed when it's needed.
Yeah. And speed during these times, have you seen it getting a lot slower out there just with the turn times?
Yeah, overall volume, and certainly, I'm sure we'll probably get into that. But at this point in time, we have investors who are really wanting. They have that buyer who is ready to go. They're wanting to get next day to the closing table before any potential issues might happen, down the road. So
Yeah.
speed is helping right now with certain investors.
Yeah, definitely. definitely. So turn time, knowing the language that investors use, like assignments, double closings, anything else that you would recommend?
That's the main things. And then, obviously at that point, it's time to grow a relationship with somebody from that title company, because you want to have one person you can call. Doesn't mean they have to have or do the actual work, but you want to have one person call who can direct you to the right department and or get your answer and call you back. So that's the next step, is then, kind of latching on to somebody who will help guide you through the rest of the process.
Yeah, I think that's just key. I think having a contact person, because as title companies grow, as any businesses grow, their departments grow, their people grow. All of a sudden, you used to work with one person all the time. Now you're working with four people, and that person doesn't know you anymore. So as an investor, sometimes you can get frustrated. You're like, well, I've worked with you guys for 2 years, but you haven't worked with this specific person. This is the first time you worked with them. So that's probably one of the frustrations that investors deal with, is getting passed on and having to give the same information, the same documentation over and over again when we've already given that into their system, right? So I think that's really key is, if you're an investor out there and you have an investor friendly title company, maybe ask like, hey, is there like a specific person that I can rely on, that I can contact without having to go through all the different channels, I guess.
Yeah. There's a lot of layers to our industry. There's the search aspect, there's the closing aspect, there's the processing aspect, the recording aspect. So, and all those are separate, quote unquote, departments. So it's definitely key to have that one point of contact who can navigate their own company's department, so you're not having to as an investor.
Yeah, definitely. So investor friendly title companies. So you guys are looking for turn times, man. That's just key. It's a very fast business, and someone that communicates efficiently, I think, is really key. And obviously, there's the cost. We're always as investors, we're always trying to budget our expenses. So that's one thing that we're constantly looking over. So I would recommend asking what the costs are, because for me, I've been doing this for 13 years, and I even get confused by title company costs when I look at that HUD statement, and I still don't know what some of them mean. And it's okay. I always encourage investors to ask questions. Like, it's okay to ask, what is this, right? What is this for? And just explain it to me. And we started doing that. And I think we did with you guys, Dan, this
Absolutely.
year. We started asking for cost just because, if a title company says, hey, our normal costs are $1,000 for everything, and I get a HUD that's 1,100, then I can say, hey, like, why is it 1,100? And maybe there's an explanation, maybe it's not, but at least we know what the normal is, right? So
No, absolutely. Just real quick on pricing. I mean, there's several items that are, you're going to see on every single closing statement: owner's policy, a closing fee, and then we all have a little bit other different fees that we charge as well. And so those aren't always apple to apple. So it might say, in one title company, it might say a title service fee, and another one it might say a processing fee.
yeah,
So at the end of the day, like you said, you quoted me $1,000, but it's 1,100. What happened?
yeah.
Um, and it could be, fees are called differently. So there's constants in our industry as far as fees are concerned. And then our title companies have their own unique ones as well.
Yeah, definitely. Let's just talk about Indiana taxes. So, listen to this show. I know we get a lot of people out of state, honestly, and that's always the confusing subject on the HUD statement, is the Indiana taxes, because we pay them in the rears. We pay them 1 year in the rears, so it's a little bit different than some of the other states. So if someone's from Florida or California or whatever, it might be a little bit different in Indiana. So can you explain just what the tax is? I don't know if you can try to explain it in the simplest way possible, because it's still kind of confusing even to me. So I don't know. Can you dumb it down?
Yeah, I'll do my best. But yeah, we typically have this conversation once or twice a week with even not outside investors, even people who live in the state of Indiana that own, real estate. So basically, we're paid in arrears. So let's base this year, 2020, when your tax bill is coming up due on May 10th, it affects the period of the year before. So when you pay those May 10th taxes, it affects the first half of 2019, or that's what the payment goes towards. So when purchasing a property and getting a proration at this point in time, there's a whole year that the buyer has not lived or owned the property, which is that year behind in 2019. So when he's, and this is just, it confuses myself sometimes, but so when that investor or buyer pays those taxes in 2020, they pay for the year 2019. He wasn't the owner in 2019, so the seller gives him a credit since the seller owned that property the entire year of 2019. And then there's this small little period of time of this year from January 1st to day of closing that's also provided a credit, the tax amount divided by 365 and the days, number of days.
Gotcha. So when you go to buy the property and you prorate the taxes, then you as the buyer would get a credit for typically 1 year or more, right?
Correct.
Of that taxes. So you'll get a credit on your, so that's why, if you buy a property for $50,000 and you pay the closing costs, but your tax are prorated, you might only have to bring 49,000 to the closing table because you get $1,000 in proration. So just remember that, guys. Indiana pays in the arrears when you prorate the taxes, and the reason why they haven't switched that, I believe, and quote me if I'm wrong, Dan, is that there would be one period where they would have to pay double, right? Taxes.
I'm not 100% sure on that, but I do know there's like only 3 or 4 states out of 50 that, do it like Indiana does. So I think most states are moving towards, or have already done a, more of a current tax year payment.
Yeah. Indiana is always like the last one.
Yeah.
It's just like when they moved to daylight savings time. I remember back in the day, we just always had the same time,
Right.
Didn't change. Then they changed that. So eventually they might change it, but right now they pay 1 year in the rears, guys. So make sure.
I guess I'd just like to add real quick, just like on your, if you're getting the proration, make sure, that you're passing along, or if you're not getting the proration, make sure you're not giving it on your BC if you're doing a double closing, because that will certainly affect your bottom line.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. I want to go to a couple other questions on this show. So is there any due diligence beyond what a title company provides? So I know that you provide title insurance, title commitments. Is there anything else that an investor should do, right? Look into as far as liens or anything else?
Sure. That's typically part of a title company's job, is to reach out if there's items that we're not able to help clear ourselves. So there will need to be participation at some point if, title's not clear, whether it be a mortgage, a judgment, a death, or et cetera. And at that point, it's best almost at that part for us to deal directly with the seller. So we can, ask all the appropriate questions and not kind of really be the in-between. But most of the stuff that we provide the commitment on the onset is stuff that we're going to handle internally to clear in order to provide clear title. Now, there are exception items to a policy. For example, in Indianapolis, as I'm sure you're very well aware, Brett, repair orders. So those are items that, the title company cannot clear, that the buyer and or investor will take subject to, and or the next person they sell the property would take it subject to. So those are items that you can get in front of your potential buyer. Here, this is what you're going to be inheriting. Hopefully it's in your rehab scope that all those items will be cleared up, and then, inspector comes out and puts their stamp on it. And so some things would, I guess, help to have a little bit more knowledge and to pass on. But as far as title clearance issues, we'll let you know if this looks like it's not going to close, there's this huge judgment, there's things that we help along and we clear along the way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing that we've ran into is the repair orders, the DCE fines, which is the Department of Code Enforcement, or there's the health and hospital that also can send you notices. Typically, those might involve a tenant that have called the health department for some reason of some sort of something going on with their house that they're living in. But one thing that we've been doing, and Dan, you can kind of help me with this, but how can someone, because this is pretty important. I mean, most of the time people are going to fix up the houses anyways, and they're going to fix those types of repairs that the city wants them to repair. Um, but I will tell you, the city's just behind. They're unorganized, probably just like any type of government organization, and they're hard to communicate with. With that too. So, is there anything that what would you recommend someone to, like, every property they buy? How do they get that information?
Sure. I mean, there's a website. It's called Excella, a citizens access portal, at least for Marion County. And you just need your key number or parcel number, parcel ID. You can put that into their system, and it tell you what kind of fines or issues, if any, are on the property.
So, do you
And
have to like sign up for that, log in, or
no, you do not. It's an outside website, and I'll email it to you, Brett.
okay.
And it basically, you have to kind of know what you're looking for, because you could see items that aren't really able to be fined or levied as a lien against the real estate. Zoning issues, for example, you might see a fine on there, but that doesn't mean it attaches to the real estate. So that's something that, as a title company, we don't address, because it
Yeah.
doesn't get reduced to that. But then there's other ones, like you said, the repair orders, the trash violations, and it's a tough situation. You have every intention of getting the property rehab, but the city has timelines on when that has to be done. So the
Right.
best thing you can do is communicate right off the bat when you know that property has a repair order, to let them know to get an extension. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So one thing, and we just started doing this, is that every property that we are going to buy, that we actually reach out, we check the website first, but then we do reach out to the Department of Code Enforcement just to see, because a lot of times maybe the website's not updated, or there's a fine coming, but they haven't processed that yet. Just weird things like that I've seen, that it's just not updated, right? So I would just recommend reaching out to the Department of Code Enforcement yourself. I think they have an email. You can also call. They are hard to communicate with, but I would just keep trying, and just to see, just to make sure, it's better safe than sorry, because we've had a lot more, dozens of properties where things have popped up that we didn't know, right? So just kind of happens. So I would just recommend that. Dan, before we go on the next couple questions here, let's just talk about tax certificate, tax sales. Like, so I know this is a big thing that I know a lot of investors have bought properties from the Marion County tax sale, or tax certificates from the tax sale. So what are some things that an investor needs to know? Because it sounds really cool, and you're like, oh, I'm going to go and I'm going to get this property for like nothing, and it's going to be cool, right?
right.
But there's some more things involved with just that. So tell our investors out there that what should they know? Tax
Sure. So, as far as you going to the tax sale, they're going to tell you that you're getting a property potentially free and clear, as far as the county and Indiana statute reads, which is true. If there's been, about 18 steps that have been followed during the tax sale redemption. So the misnomer is that, yes, you technically are getting this deed free and clear of all liens, mortgages, judgments, etc. But that doesn't mean that a title insurance company feels comfortable insuring that transaction. So that's where I think you get a lot of people who don't quite understand that. So, they bought their property at a tax sale, the redemption period's expired, they have the tax deed, and they want to go obviously sell it, recoup their investment. Well, you can't do that without a quiet title. And that's another court proceeding that title companies require in order to, it's just one more round of notices to all potential lien holders to step forward. And then after that period, it's typically a 3 to 4 month, it could be even 6-month process. So while you're ready to sell that property, you have a purchase agreement, et cetera, there's not going to be a title company that's going to be able to insure that property without a quiet title. So that's a big thing. That's something you'd want to start right away if you potentially are going to be selling the property down the road.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, it's a long process. So yeah, you can get a really good deal, but it's just like anything. Nothing comes for free. Good deals have a lot of hair on it sometimes, and we get some of the best deals, but they need a lot of work, right? So we have to go in and spend a lot of work fixing those up. Same thing here. You can get a great deal, but you have to do a lot of work with the paperwork and timelines, things like that. So take all that into consideration: the holding costs, insurance. If you get a loan, whatever, you have to take all that in consideration. So Dan, I want to really just dive into what's kind of going on right now. This is
Sure.
obviously a hot topic. You can't get on social media, the news, uh, anything without reading about the pandemic going on around the world, especially, Indianapolis too. I know Marion County's been hit pretty hard. They're really cracking down. They have a stay-at-home order in all of Indiana. And I think Marion County, you guys have it until May 1st. Is that right?
Yes,
Okay.
but we're excluded. Go ahead.
No, yeah, I just thought I know that as far as Indiana goes, Marion County's been hit a little bit harder than some of the other counties, but obviously they got the most people, right?
Right.
And so so I just want to talk to you about, like, how has this affected your business? Number one, yeah, a lot of businesses are hurting and suffering right now. So what are you guys doing? I mean, how has it affected you guys?
Yeah, we're still part of that essential business deemed by the governor or whatever. So we're still working. We just modified schedules. We have everybody working from home. We're doing curbside closings where we come to your car. We just really had to make a lot of different changes in order to kind of adapt to the situation at hand, because we know people still need to purchase their house to live in. There's still we still have to keep on moving along. So that's a route that we took. I think each title company is kind of doing their own little spin on however they want to do it to keep people safe. We've decided not to have anybody in our office whatsoever. So if you're coming to our office, it's by appointment only. And we're limping along, just trying to manage everybody from working from their house. And it's actually been kind of nice to see, to be honest with you, seeing everybody come together, making everything work. And it's nice to know that we're stable to conduct business in this type of environment, from the comfort of our home.
Yeah, definitely. So curbside closings. I guess I'm just picturing someone coming out in roller skates and they're bringing you a hamburger too. And
It's
sign
close, man.
the closing docs.
If I didn't have insurance issues, I would get them roller skates for sure. But it's almost exactly as you said. We come out with a clipboard, hand it through your window, sit down or stand and watch it. You sign, you hand it back. We go make copies. We give you your check, and you're on your way.
Nice. At least
Yeah,
it's starting to get nice in Indianapolis, at least
absolutely.
right now.
Yeah, yeah.
I
There were a couple rainy days there that
Yeah.
weren't too much fun. Yeah.
That wouldn't be fun. So you guys are still moving along. I mean, has things really slowed down? I mean, what have you seen?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, March it was a huge month for our company at least, and it looked like it was going to be trending the same way for April and the rest of the year. So yeah, we've had a huge reduction in orders. They're still coming in, but yeah, I mean we're definitely down.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but
But just like any business.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, for us, I mean, I know that March actually we had a we had a really good quarter actually, but a lot of that was from January, February. March was like okay. Um, but yeah, we're seeing some things here in April, but I just want to encourage everybody out there listening to this. Indianapolis is still an amazing place to invest. We can still perform closings and we can do things virtually. Technology gives us, you know, what we can do now. We can sign documents virtually, things like that. And have you guys been doing more of that as far as trying to do closings virtually too, Dan?
Yeah, the Indiana legislature hasn't quite passed yet, but the e-recording, or excuse me, the e-closing bill is really close to getting enacted. So then we can officially do closings over email, as opposed to having to even come in our office. Which, once that gets passed, that will probably be the next item that as a company we push is, that's how we would like to handle our closings, as long as, a lender approves and everybody has the technology, I guess, to make it happen.
Yeah. And that would really help the investor, right? Where they're doing a lot of closings and doing them over email, which you guys would, I mean, the biggest thing is just getting it notarized, right?
Right.
And that's the biggest thing, which that would help do that. You guys can notarize it over email. Is that pretty much what it
Yeah,
is?
it's a little more complicated than that, and there's also going to be a cost factor. So it has to be an approved platform. That's actually what what they're going through right now, is getting those platforms approved. So you still have to go through somebody else's platform, and there's a couple of different options you can do. There's one where you, as a title company, can handle the closing, so it would just be using their platform to conduct the closing. And then there's another company or another, I guess, process where you just send it to them. They have their own notary that, will contact you and have it all done that way.
Awesome. Sounds good. Well, we look forward to that if that does come about. So any other just advice for investors? So I know that your business has slowed down some, um, just like any other businesses, but any other just kind of advice during this time to help investors just kind of smooth things out with the obstacles? How can they get things to the closing table?
Yeah, got a couple things. There's some of the items that we've seen, at least here in the past couple, 3-4 weeks, where, somebody is buying a property, quote unquote, cash. Well, in actuality, was a hard money lender. So I think that's a good question to ask your end buyer. Yeah, you said cash, but is this really cash?
Mhm.
Because a lot of the hard money lenders have really slowed giving out money, I guess, or whatever, or approving loans, et cetera. So we've had several deals fall apart because of that lack of communication. So that would be a big thing I would want to understand: is this an actual cash transaction? And if you need to, I maybe want to see their bank account, make sure, or at least make sure that it's there. So the more time you waste on finding a new buyer, you're several steps behind already. So
Yeah, definitely. So again, I think it just goes back to don't be afraid to ask questions. Sometimes we're just excited about getting a deal, a signed purchase agreement that we're like, oh, this is so cool. And you send to the title company and you forgot to ask, hey, is this definitely cash? Or are you getting a hard money loan? And the more information that the investor can give to the title company, the better, right?
oh, that also helps. Absolutely.
Yeah. So any type of questions that you can ask the seller, it would just really smooth out the transaction, and that's the name of the game. So even though this is going on, you can still close on properties. We can still get things to the closing table. It's a little bit different. You got the curbside treatment here, at least for the next few weeks, it sounds like. And um, and I think we had a great conversation just about finding investor friendly title companies and doing your own due diligence, which I think is big. So whatever you guys can do to make sure you're doing your own due diligence on these transactions and getting the information to the title company, um, and working with the right title company that you want to work with, I think that is just key. Dan, I really appreciate you being on the show today, man. It's
Absolutely.
been awesome
Yeah,
and
I
a pleasure
appreciate it.
having you, and I wish you so much success during this time. Stay safe and clean, and I know this is definitely just a time in history that we're all going to look back and be like, man, that was weird and
Yeah, yeah.
different, and it's in my kids textbooks probably.
Right.
But
We'll pass.
it will pass just like anything. And as far as investors go, I mean, you hate to say this, but obviously when suffering and things like that do come and the economy does shift, I mean, there's obviously opportunities for investors, right? And there's just a shift in money, a transfer in money. So it could come in real estate, which that's what we're in. A lot of the stock market people have lost money and people are making money, right? So it's just a shift in the money. So if you're listening out there, It's a great time that you can, you know, spend some time with your family right now, but there's going to be obviously some opportunities coming, and just make sure you're prepared for all that as well. But thank you so much, Dan.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Brett.
it, man. God
Okay, take
bless.
care. Bye bye.